Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Real Estate Investing. I'm your host, Sharon Vornholt, and I'm so glad you're here today. I'm really excited about this show because I have Jaime Masters of the Eventual Millionaire back on my show today. I can't believe it's been almost 7 years since our last interview. Jaime is the host of Eventual Millionaire. She's an author. She has interviewed almost 500 self-made millionaires and billionaires. She's been a business coach for over 10 years and has taught 6- and 7-figure CEOs, entrepreneurs, and business owners how to double and triple their revenue. She's been featured in Yahoo Online, Inc.com, Success Magazine, Entrepreneur, Women's Health Magazine, Business Insider, and many more. Welcome to the show, Jaime. That was a mouthful.
I know, right? You could have cut some of those things off, but thank you. It's awesome to be here.
No, I'm so happy for all your accomplishments, and I wouldn't dream of leaving even one of them out, but I'm sure there's a lot more that weren't even in there. So I want to start out by having you tell everyone how you got started, but I have a burning question for you along those lines. Did you just wake up one day and think, I'll just interview a whole bunch of millionaires and see how they got where they were?
Totally. No, actually, I hate writing. So number one, back in the day, many, many years ago when I started my site, I started blogging because that was the cool new thing to do, except for the fact that I'm really bad at grammar and I'm not a fan of writing. I do have a book, but not a huge fan of writing. And so actually I brought it up to my mastermind group 9 years ago. Yeah, 9 years ago. Long time ago. And I said, what should I do? And Pat Flynn was on it along with a woman named Maren Kate, and they both had podcasts. Oh. And they told me, they go, you should interview millionaires. And I went, I don't know any.
Is that really how that happened?
That's exactly how that happened. So I asked my mentor at the time, who was a business coach, and I was working with him. I go, do you know any? And he goes, not anyone that's willing to say it and come on a show and be like, hey, I'm a millionaire. And I was like, oh, okay, great. So how am I going to do this? Because to me, the talking and conversing and connecting with people is a skill set of mine. I absolutely adore that. Do it all day long. Writing, it's like pulling teeth. So what I was trying to do is go, how can I do both? And actually, initially, I ended up doing email back and forth between a handful of millionaires because I thought that was the only thing I could do. And then I ended up starting the podcast just by asking somebody randomly that I found on iTunes that was willing to say they were a millionaire. I didn't even have a show yet. So he said yes. And I was like, well, if I can get one, then maybe I can get one a month. This was back then. I was like, maybe I can get one a month. And, almost 500 episodes later, it's been life-changing.
And it's just crazy because I remember back then, I was just fascinated by the fact that you could get them to actually show up on your show and admit to the fact that they were millionaires. I was like, how does she do that?
Right? I had a lot of people say no. And it's funny, like even Seth Godin said no at first because he didn't want to make it about money. Though I followed up so many times and got him on anyway. But it's a thing that people don't want to be like, hey, nowadays though, people are so much more transparent. I actually have so many introductions. We have a wait list of millions. Like I never thought, exactly. I don't go after people really unless I really, really want them. I got 4 introductions yesterday.
Oh, you're kidding.
To David Bach, an amazing human.
Oh my word, David Bach. What if
someone asked me if I wanted an intro to David Bach, and I was like, yes, I do.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, real estate investors, I know know about my world, and they almost always start out as solopreneurs. And along the way, what I found I've been in this business 20 years now. So what I have found is that one of two things happen. They either stay a one man or one woman show, and they have this singular focus about the next deal. How do I make my next deal?
Yes.
Or they kind of begin to hire a person here and there, but the vast majority of them never build a business. And after talking to hundreds of these people, there's not even like one position that they hire for right off the bat. Some hire an admin. Another person might say, well, I'm really bad at talking to people. I'm going to hire an acquisition manager. Yes. Or I hate bookkeeping. I'll hire a bookkeeper. But they got these little pieces all out there. And I've been guilty of that too. But they don't know how to connect the dots. And that seems to be one thing that you are extraordinarily qualified for, is that they don't know how to build and this is probably true of most small business owners, they don't really know how to build systems. They don't know how to build a team. And they may even have their business up to 6 figures, but they're just drowning in work, and drowning is the term. So I know building systems and teams, that's your jam. So that's what I want to talk about today. So what comes first, systems or teams, or does it happen all at one time?
Don't you wish you could just be like, I'm going to clone myself and then be done?
Right now.
Right? And that's the funny thing. I have a degree in computers. So to me, systems are amazing to know, but I hate creating them. Like I literally hate creating them. I don't even like using them. I want my team to use them. I'm bad at it. They have to actually get me to use them. That being said, one of the first things that I have people start with, because there are so many roles in business. So if you went to business school, they're going to give you an org chart and they're going to say, here you go, here, map out all your roles. You probably are doing 17 different things. Right. And so when we start looking at what you're doing, and when you think you're just a solopreneur, and again, like you said, they have the mindset of just going after deals, they're a salesperson. Right. So great. Go you for being good at sales, because out of everything on this planet, being good at sales is really important. It makes you money. That being said, you're still wearing those 17 hats. So one of the very first things I have any of my clients do when they come to me, they're good at some things, they're not good at others. Just we're humans, we're allowed to be bad at things. That's totally fine. So what I have them do is a time audit. They hate me at first. Nobody in a million years wants to be told to do a time audit. It's super unsexy and not fun, especially because it's within 5-minute increments. Like, this is how annoying I am.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Right? They're like, Jamie, I hate you. I was like, you'll love me later. I know I've heard this many times before. Thank you. And I even have them do it personal and professional, because there are different ways that we can delegate and leverage way easier that will make you feel even just the mind share of not having to do it all, having some support, even if it just means having somebody do your laundry on the personal side. I hate laundry, so I always use that one as an example, right? I hate it. Makes me crazy. But being able to pull off some of those things doesn't have to be a whole new hire. So what we'll do is we have them do 3 to 5 days, and I'll actually give your listeners all for free. No opt-in required. It's a Google Doc that I actually give my clients. I call it Speed of Implementation. And the first module on it is all about a time audit. So if you do this, which you probably won't, because I told you how much you hate it. But
no, I hate it, but I will definitely do it. I'm going to hate it.
Right? So, and it's okay. I've been told to do it by my coaches, and I also hate it. I'm like, no, I tell people to do this. I don't, okay.
I don't really want to do it.
I'll eat crow. Okay, great. Yeah. But the reason why, especially for me as a coach, is I can see how they're actually, quote unquote, managing their time. But to me, I care more about their energy and what their strengths are. Because one of the things that's come up over and over and over again from all of these millionaire interviews is that when you're trying to leverage in your business, you really have to understand what your strengths are. And we kind of get an inkling, like, especially if you're a good deal maker, you get know, great, I'm good at that piece. But do I hate bookkeeping? Like you said, do I hate this? Do I hate that? Now, I'm not saying just piecemeal it and go, I'm going to go do this and randomly, right? But what I want to do is create that list of all the things that is not what I want to be doing long-term, and figure out what goes where. So a lot of people, especially that are deal makers, don't necessarily want to deal with a huge team and be a manager of people. So knowing what you actually want to be creating in the future is really important. Leaning on those strengths, really important. If one of your weaknesses is managing and you don't want to manage people, we have to overcome that also, right? So what I like to do with clients is do a future, I call it future casting. It's future org chart. So you can start going, okay, I know right now, I know it's just me. I know what my strengths are. I know what I hate and I don't want to do anymore. But in 5 years, do I want to have a huge team? Because some people don't. And that's great. Like, I'm never going to make people have a big team if they don't want to. But do they want a big team? They just don't want to be the person managing it. I'm not a great manager. I'm okay. Leilani is what I call my operator. She manages the team. She's way better at it than I am. I have 18, I'm all over the place.
That's an important distinction there.
Big time. Big time. But that's because I know that I tried managing and I read all the books and I'm okay at it, but I'm definitely not great. And being a leader and inspiring and stuff like that is very important too. And I'm not saying you can abdicate that, but knowing what you want to be doing in your future versus what not is really what that future casting is about. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally.
Yeah. So again, we're just brainstorming here. We're going, what do I really want to create? And again, it's a guess because you don't we don't actually know what we totally care about in 5 years. We can sort of aim for something, and then you start managing people and are like, never mind, I don't want to do this. So you definitely have to be flexible. Don't get me wrong. But then we can at least start organizing short-term versus long-term. So for me, especially an entrepreneur, everyone wants ROI like right now, right? Like, how can I make sure I'm getting my money back? Systems creating for system's sake is silly. We're not corporate, right? I hear that all the time from people like, why is my team creating all these random systems that we're never going to use? So really trying to prioritize and 80-20 the stuff that we have. So for the people that are willing to do the time audit, all I would do is organize it. And on that sheet, it actually has a worksheet that tells you how expensive or what hourly cost it would be per job. Okay. The reason why most people start with admins is because literally it's the least expensive work, and you should not be doing it most of the time, right?
Right.
But for deals or salespeople, those are actually, you have to pay them a lot more. They're harder to find. So if you suck at deals, right, knowing what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are and which ones are most important that will give you the most bang for your buck first is going to be huge. Does that make sense? So we take that big list and we organize it based on job role. So do we have 20 hours a week enough for an admin? Or would I, if I actually had an admin to do it, so I didn't have to do it, I'm avoiding all my admin tasks or whatever those things are, right? That's how come you start to go, okay, this is where I am now. And if I want my future org chart to look like this, what is the initial role that we need to hire for? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, because you hit upon something that is totally me. I'm okay at managing people, and I can do it, and I have done it, but it's not my favorite thing. I'm more of a creator type, and I'd rather go, here, you do that. You go take care of all the people over there. So I'm totally like that. But you just really get hung up in doing things that you shouldn't be doing. And then you can't concentrate on the things you should be doing.
So, and this to me, so my previous job in corporate, I made 6 figures at 22. I thought I was really cool, except I hated my life, all that fun stuff. I was a project manager. Now I have ADD. I am not that detail oriented. I can be if I make myself. Don't get me wrong. I'm an overachiever, so I want to be the best at everything. So that is overarching everything that I do. So I was a project manager. I hated it. I did it. I was good at it, and I hated it. And it drained my energy. And at the end of the day, I was like, are you kidding me? Do I have to do this for the rest of my life? Hence the reason why I stopped, right? Some people like Leilani, who's downstairs right now working, amazing, so analytical, like it's her sweet spot. So to me, especially for something like what you were saying for you, knowing that is extremely important, not because you don't want to be doing it short term, because short term you're probably going to have to, but long term we're going to want to either be grooming somebody that's already in your organization that can be more of a manager, and you can teach them the ways that you manage instead of necessarily hiring someone that knows how to manage. They're a little bit more expensive anyway, right? So giving yourself the longevity to teach somebody else how to do it that might have been an executive admin beforehand that you're teaching to manage is awesome, knowing that eventually you'll be handing that piece over as your business grows.
Right. And I think it's always good for your business if you have those types of people in your business that you can move into roles, because you don't have to start with somebody fresh from some other industry and unlearn them of all the habits you don't want them to have, and then teach them what you want to do. So I'm a firm believer in taking somebody just like you said, and moving them up within your organization. I think that's probably the best idea on the planet.
Well, and it's funny because do you know Jay Papasan, who wrote the book, The One Thing?
Yes.
I mean, Keller Williams, it's kind of like a big deal, right? So Jay is a good friend of mine, and we had lunch before I ever hired Leilani. I had executive admins before. I knew I was hiring an executive admin, and he gave me amazing advice that I tell everybody, and I preach to him. He's amazing. He said, don't hire an executive assistant, hire an assistant executive.
An assistant executive, really?
Yes. So somebody that you can groom into an executive type position.
That's interesting that you bring him up. I just listened to a podcast he was on. He's a fascinating man. Of course, I love that book. I love the One Thing. That's a great book. But that's very interesting. So an assistant. The reason why
he said this though too is I went to one of the Gary Keller workshops. They're here in Austin, and Gary Keller was talking about you're 5 people away from $1 million.
Right.
5 of the right hires. So if you think the way that Jay's thinking, which is amazing, and you get the right people on your team, they are the ones that are going to accelerate your growth. So even if you have to pay them because they're they're A players, you have to pay them a little bit more, but you know that you're grooming them to be a higher level role, worth its weight in gold, because you don't have to, at that point, hire somebody else and teach them how you think and how you work and your ways, and they can grow with the company. Even if you're a solopreneur now, hire an executive admin that you know would be more of an operations person potentially in the future. It will make your business so much easier knowing that you've got the longevity of someone with you.
So people are going to ask me this question: can I find somebody like that for 15, 20 hours a week, or do I have to right out of the gate hire someone, a 40-hour-a-week person?
Great question. So it depends, number one. Number two, though, is really knowing who and where they are. So hiring is a pain. We actually have a hiring kit, and it's only like $97. And we go over how millionaires actually hire people, right? Because hiring is another skill set. And if you don't know how to hire, it's way even harder, right? And a bad hire can cost you 10% or even more of whatever their salary is. So thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, right? So when we're looking at 15 or 20 hours a week, the reason why I ask who and where is because online, going to a site like hiremymom.com, you can find somebody who only wants to work 15 or 20 hours a week that are probably overqualified way easier than you going, well, I have to hire a VA because I only want 10 to 15 hours, right? But they're $40 an hour because sometimes VAs know their worth and they charge a lot, right?
They charge that, yeah.
Yeah. Long term, I want you to have someone full time because then you have their full attention.
Okay.
But short term, just to start getting those chunks off your plate, I highly recommend getting someone that you know will at least be there longevity-wise, even if it's only 15 or 20 hours.
Okay. So there could be 2 categories. You could know you're going to be able to, you need someone, and financially, some people can't do that right out of the gate. So as long as you have your long-term plan in place and segue over to the person who's going to potentially help you grow your business faster, then that would be a plan that people could work with.
Well, and another tip is if you know other real estate investors that also need a 15 to 20 hour person, and then you share them. So I've seen that happen a lot with clients because then they're working on the same systems. They're working on the same type of thing instead of having 2 completely separate type things. Does that make sense? And so being able to actually share the hiring responsibilities and going, okay, you're going to do 20, I'm going to do 20, but they're essentially doing the same skill set. Hey, set up this system for them, set up this system for me too. This would be great.
That's a great idea. So when it comes to systems, I know you used to set them up. So what are the most important systems for business? I know every business is different, but there should be some systems in every business. What do you consider to be the most important ones?
Depends on the industry and depends on the type of thing. For your industry, sales, right? Deals, like actually creating a workflow for your deal flow. I mean, otherwise, no offense, a lot of people that, especially that I work with that are owners, aren't as detail oriented, and we drop stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so being able to set up a system so you're not dropping the stuff that would, that small fine tuning will make a huge difference in the long run if you're not actually, or follow-up systems on the sales and deal side. To me, that would most likely be number one for your industry. Again, each industry is a little bit different. Some people that don't have issues with leads and sales coming in at all, we start with onboarding because we want to make sure that the onboarding experience is amazing for their clients, depending on what kind of industry they're in.
Yeah, that's really important. And one of the things that I tell real estate investors they need is a system for keeping their leads and for following up, because something like 80%, I'm on the investing side rather than the real estate person side. So one of the statistics around is that up to 80% of your deals will come from follow-up, and actually after someone has said no. So if you just go and make an offer on a house and so, okay, they said no, that's the end of that. You can't do that. And I tell people you got to have follow-up systems, and ideally you'll have a CRM or something like that to keep those in, because we all know how those little pieces of paper get lost. So people go, no, I've got it on a Post-it note. No Post-it notes.
Exactly. So imagine you're a real business owner and you're bringing somebody to be on your team and they're virtual and you're like, oh yeah, but I use random notes and I use this and I use that, right? Or it's in my email. Then you you can't do that anyway. So really getting an overview of your business and what you want to be creating, I completely agree with you. I was just actually working out a workflow for one of my clients who's sending out postcards and doing a whole bunch of stuff trying to get more houses. And we created a 3 to 6 month plan, but he wants his team to be doing I'm like, you don't want to do the follow-up. He's like, I do not want to do the follow-up. I don't want to be paying attention. And there's companies that will do some of that stuff for you too. One of my friends does land and he doesn't like the follow-up either. So he has somebody else field all the calls and do all that stuff. So there are so many ways to get past what you suck at by setting up systems or having somebody else do that side of things, which is huge. But the self-responsibility of you actually organizing your information, unfortunately, that's on you because you can't train anybody else if you've got a randomness going on.
And what I found too is a long time ago, I was working with a VA and he said, now he was in the Philippines. I had hired him for a very specific job. And he said, oh, Sharon, we need to use Asana. You know, everything is lost in my email. And I went, oh gosh, how sad is that? You know, 10, 15 years ago, a VA is telling me to use Asana. This guy's more organized than I was at that time. It's funny today, but it wasn't so funny right then.
You have no idea how many times I hear this. So to me, having a project management system, especially with a team, ridiculously important. So many people don't have it. And so when we start going into a company, we go, okay, what do you have for a CRM? What do you have for a project management system? What do you have for, right? We list all the things. First thing, so besides systems, we need a place to put the systems, right? So having, a lot of the times we'll just do what I call low hanging fruit. So we'll do, what is your email workflow? Does that even work for you? Do you even have Asana or Trello set up? Like these are basic stuff, but when it's just you and you don't have to deal with it, especially if you don't like dealing with details, it just seems like a system that you're not going to use. I literally had to be sat down. I'm a geek, but I don't like random, especially as someone's got so many things and right. I'm like, oh, so I used it as like a to-do list. So I'd put stuff in, no projects, no, right? No. I was not good. And my executive admin before Leilani was like, we're going to sit you down, Jamie. You're going to grin and bear it. You can have a glass of wine. I don't care, but you're learning this stuff and how we're going to do it. And I was like, okay.
You had an intervention.
Seriously. And unfortunately, a lot of owners need that. But because the people on their team don't have the guts, right?
To say
to say it. Exactly. Thank goodness Kendra was amazing. And she's like, you need to sit down. And I'm like, you're right. I'm being a temperamental owner. Darn, right? When it's just you, it's easier for you to sit in that. So for you, having the VA go, wait a minute, and you're like, oh, he's got a point, makes a difference and probably change the trajectory of how fast you were growing.
You know, it's a case a lot of times of you don't know what you don't know at the moment. And just when you have a coach or you have somebody, all smart people have coaches, by the way, just so you all know. Jamie's a coach. I do coaching, but we also invest in ourselves and our education too. So having a coach it means that you're smarter than the average Joe. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. So I want to get that point straight too. So let's assume somebody is under that 100,000, under that 6-figure mark, and they're just inching up there and they can't get over the top. Do you have some actionable steps that they can take to, like, once you get over the hump, then it's easier to go to the next hump, but you got to get over that hump.
Yes. Okay. So this is where I like challenges because I completely agree. I remember when I quit my 6-figure job and then started making no money, I was like, great. Now what? Right. I just want to make $5,000. Come on. $5,000 a month. Come on, people. Right. So I remember being there and I remember going and I had a coach at the time and I was probably making, this was many years ago, $4,000 or $5,000 a month. But I'm like, I can't, I have bills and I had kiddos, you know, and I'm like, I can't hire somebody. And plus especially to hire somebody, it's a lot of, responsibility, right? Where you're like, oh, now I'm responsible for them and their family and all sorts of stuff, right? And so it is tough. And I remember my business coach, because I had hired a bunch of people in the Philippines beforehand, just trying to get a VA that was inexpensive, that I was like, I just need them, but I was a bad manager and they weren't good. And I felt like I was spending more time trying to help them than not, right? So my coach, thank goodness for her name was Amy Applebaum, and she's a good friend of mine now. But back then she was like, Jamie, you need to hire somebody that actually is going to have your back. And I was like, but what about cash, And I'm already exhausted because I had so many clients. She's like, raise your prices, number one. So I raised my prices. Number two, again, make sure you deliver value, people. Don't just raise your prices. Just, I know you can, but I just have to put that out there as a caveat. And then challenge yourself. So we set up a challenge, and I do this with my clients now too. I love challenges. I'm very competitive. So, and most of you people probably
I would have never guessed that.
Right? So setting up a challenge and going, I'm going to get 3 more clients. I'm going to deal with the pain that exists in getting more of those clients on a short term so that I can have the cash flow to be able to hire somebody. So I started looking for that new hire at the same time because it takes a while. And I started getting those new clients and just grinned and bared it and told my husband at the time, I'm going to have to work a couple extra hours every single week, at least 5 to 10. My kiddos were young, so it was a big deal. And I just have to do it. Having that assistant and again, scary, right? Scary because I think she was $20 an hour. So she knew her worth also. So I was trying to find a like $11, $12 an hour person back then. Somebody came in. My business coach at the time goes, if you don't hire her, I will. So you better hire. I was like, okay. Bullet. I know. I was like, oh, okay. Good to know. I bit the bullet and I did it. And again, it changed absolutely everything. And so the problem is that if you don't put yourself on the spot to be able to do it, you will just keep in the safety zone, the comfort zone, the pieces that you know. And unfortunately, we are okay with killing ourselves a little bit, right?
Yeah, right.
So we're stuck in the routines. And as long as it's known, then we're okay. But start talking about unknown stuff and that scares the crap out of you, right? So when we set ourselves up as a challenge that we know we're going to have to be doing stuff that's out of our comfort zone and a little harder, we sort of brace ourselves a little bit better for it. Okay, right? And then once you commit to it, you just do it. And again, I highly recommend having an accountability buddy or somebody. It doesn't have to be a coach, but somebody that can just call you on your own crap when it comes to this, instead of going, I'm going to set myself a challenge, but then I don't have to tell anybody that I didn't actually do it.
I didn't actually do the work. Yeah. And I go along with that 100%. I think having an accountability partner and like you said, one that'll hold your feet to the fire and go, oh no, you're not getting away with that. It can't be your best friend or somebody who doesn't want to hurt your feelings. It's got to be, they have to do it with love, but say, cut the crap, Jamie. Cut the crap, Sharon.
So this is my mastermind group that I talked about at the very, very beginning. One of the reasons why I started the mastermind group 9 years ago was because I didn't have any friends in this space. All my friends lived in the computer online. I lived in Maine before, right? Middle of nowhere. Nobody knew what I did. And so having a mastermind group of 5 people that you can actually be vulnerable to, like 9 years is a long time, right? Pat knows me really, really well now, and he calls me on my crap, unfortunately or fortunately, right?
Right.
Right. And so having and building that relationship with someone, if it's only one person, make it an accountability buddy. If you really can create a mastermind group that you know will go long term, I highly recommend that too, because once they get to know you and how you work, it's way easier for them to call you and you to be able to call them on their own stuff. And that pushing as humans in our brain, we're trying to be safe. Like, unfortunately, this thing hasn't caught up to what we're trying to do in business, right? Our brain still thinks that it's a tiger or whatever it is. So we need something outside of ourselves to make sure that we're pushing ourselves outside of our comfort zone. Because after almost 500 millionaire interviews, they keep saying that that's really important. That's how we grow. That's how we evolve, right? But again, it's hard to do it because we get anxious. Like, our brain will actually make us anxious on some of this stuff. So having a challenge and then having that accountability set up and making it more of a fun game is just a way to counteract some of that stuff.
So when you set up your mastermind, I'm totally jealous that you and Pat are in a mastermind together.
Before you stop, he said no at first.
Can I
tell you that story about the follow-up? Because I think it's important. So my blog was 1 month old at the time. 1 month. I randomly cold emailed Pat because I saw him on a forum, right? I actually cold emailed a whole bunch of people. And so I sent an email saying, I'm going to start this mastermind group. He didn't know who I was. He was like, no, thanks. I'm already in one. I'm good. Right. And so I got a few other people. They were awesome. And I had a lot of experience in the online world with my friends that had video, a viral video online. So I tried to lean on that as much as I could because my blog was only a month old and I had nothing, right? Yay, go team. I'm smart in other things, right? So I cold emailed him. The week before we were going to start the actual mastermind group, I just followed up. I said, hey, this is what the outline looks like of the mastermind format, right? And we can actually post, I can post on that landing page.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
What the mastermind rules are. Here, let me make a note so my assistant can do it. Because I sent him that and I told him the bios of all the people that were in it. And he was like, wow, this is really organized. I haven't been part of a mastermind group that was really this organized. You know what? I'm in.
Well, there you go. Now, let me ask you, was it initially a paid mastermind or
Nope.
Just a group
this
of?
was my personal mastermind.
Your personal mastermind. Okay.
I made a list of you know how they say, make a list of the 5 people that you want to be. I made a list in Maine of my friends and was like, they're amazing humans. This isn't where I want to be. And so that's why I started the mastermind group.
That's an excellent idea. Now, I belong to one, and curiously, we were together for some years, and in our case, we all kind of went off on different trajectories, but that is still something that I tell people that they should do. You need people that are like you, because certainly in my business and probably in yours, people have no clue what we do. They just think you kind of stay home and get on the computer a little bit, or I don't know what they think, but they really, they can't figure out why is she always working? Why is she always tired? Why is she trying to hire somebody else? It's just, they don't get it.
Well, and I run paid masterminds now, and it is because it's so isolating.
Yes.
Especially, I live in Austin now. When I lived in Maine, it was really isolating. Like I literally, all my friends were in the computer, and being able to have people that understand and can give you those little quick tips at the right time that changes that saves you 20 hours of time, or that really speeds up that process. It just creates momentum, and you can actually be vulnerable. So like you said, people can call you on your stuff. And if you don't have somebody that can do that for you, you will go slower. You just will. You will go slower.
It's funny. I was at an event back a couple of months ago and had the opportunity to talk to Pat. We were at Podfest, and he was a speaker there. And I always just love watching him on stage because he has so much energy, kind of like you. It's just an experience when he speaks. And we talked afterwards, but it was great fun getting to interact with him.
Well, and so what's funny is 9 years ago, his email list was like 10 or 15,000 people. Like, so get people that are up and coming, just as a side note. I'm pretty sure I couldn't cold email him right now and get him in any way, shape or form, but start looking for those people that are up and comers that are going to help you on your way too.
Excellent. Great idea. So, I know you talk about this, and I've talked about this, and Trevor Mock, another investor friend, he talks about being the bottleneck in his business. And his people had to say, look, you're the cog in the wheel. We can't get anything done because you have to approve every single thing. And he talked about that on a podcast that we did back, quite a while ago. But he said they finally just said, you got to get out of the way or we're never going to grow. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Oh, letting go is so ridiculously hard for us, right? We think that we're great at everything, which we know we're not, but it's a control issue. Yes. So just so everybody knows. So when you start creating systems, your goal is to trust the system so much that you do not need to intervene, right? That it has your flavor enough that you can feel okay with whether it be who's running it or the system in itself. It's an automated system, that it's going to be okay without you necessarily not hovering, I guess is what I can say, right? Now, again, I'm not saying abdicate anything. You delegate, make sure you're following up, make sure you're checking in on some of these things. But what I found with my clients, it's hilarious because I'll give you one example. So one of my clients is a real estate lawyer. He has three different offices, great firms, amazing people that work for him. So our number one goal was to get him out of the day-to-day. So he didn't have to come to the office. We hired an operator, or what we call an operator. It started running really well. He's like, I don't know what to do with myself. I'm just coming into the office and I'm getting like involved because he didn't even know how to let go. Right now we're starting another business for him right now. So that way he has focus on something else that's fun and exciting. But when you start thinking about how hard it is, it's because you've literally had your fingers in absolutely everything. Right. And so this is what has a tendency to happen is we start micromanaging. Even though we could set up the system so that it doesn't have to be micromanaged, right? It's hard. You have to, a lot of the times you have to like go, oh, you need to slap and you need to get out of your own way because you know your team's good enough. And again, you have to trust the team and you have to make sure the systems you trust. So I would ask those questions first. If you can say yes to those things, then it's on you, people. And it's, again, just so you feel validated, or there's all sorts of internal reasons why we do this stuff. It makes us feel good typically. But the process of letting go is such a process that nobody would think that it would be a thing, right? You're like, oh, it should be easy. Like, you say you don't even want to do this stuff. Why are you putting yourself in all the little nitty gritty things? And it's habitual, it's patterns, it's all sorts of stuff. And so being aware is the first step. Having a team, thank goodness he had a team that could slap him around, because it's huge. Otherwise, you are literally holding back your company.
Yeah, I love that. So trust the system so much that you don't have to intervene. Is that was what you said? I have another friend who says it a little bit differently. He said your job should be to make yourself irrelevant in your business, except to be the face of your business, like doing your interviews and those sorts of things. And I think that is a brilliant goal, because let's face it, we didn't do this just because we wanted to work like dogs and work 50 hours a week. That wasn't why we did this. I think by and large, entrepreneurs are creators. If they wanted to just be in the 9 to 5, would have kept their job.
See, but the hard thing is, especially internally, depending on the person, we wear how many hours we hustle as a badge of courage, as a badge of honor.
We do. It's like, I worked so many hours and I had to work all weekend. And
yeah, you're like, give me attention. I'm doing amazing things, right? Please look at me, right? But it's true. It's totally true. And shifting that is really important. So one of the things I do with my clients is I make them set a goal of how many hours they want to work. So that instance that I was telling you, I was like, well, how many hours do you actually want to be working on that business? And he's like, 20 hours a week. Okay, well then what are we going to actually be doing in that 20 hours a week? You want to be part of your team. You want to be a leader. You want to inspire. He still wanted to do a couple of the networking and sales activities. So we do that and then go, but you don't have to do any of the other stuff. Like, you literally mark it down. You don't have to do that stuff. Now we can focus our efforts on something else. But again, until you actually start pulling apart the reasons why we're doing this, right? He's like, well, I want them to not be mad that I'm not in the office, right? Or you know what I mean? There's all this internal stuff that's going on in your head that you don't realize until you start the process. But that's why business is so amazing, because we evolve as a human. You get to find out all your crazy stuff that's going on in your head as you're doing it.
All your faults and all the things you shouldn't be doing. It's such a fun experience, Jamie.
This is why we're crazy. Well, we do, right?
Yes, it is why we are entrepreneurs for sure. You've interviewed a lot of millionaires. Are there certain core principles that you would say they all have? I bet there are. I bet you hear the same things over and over, principles and traits. And another thing you don't want to get into after that is, like, I know the whole miracle morning thing. I am not a person that can open my eyes at 4 a.m. in the morning. And then I've reached the stage where I go, and why should I do that when I know that's not my optimal working time? I want to dive into those types of things.
Oh, yes. Oh, I have so much to say on this. Hal is a very good friend.
Oh, good. I love his book, by the way, but it's like, Hal, in no way I'm getting up at 4 a.m.
So I've said that to him personally. We both love UFC. And so we both went to a UFC fight. This was a few years ago before he lived in Austin. Now he lives in Austin. He left the fight before the main event because he had to be up at 3:30 for his miracle morning. And I was like, you just flew out here from California. What? Like, what? He had like front row seats. I was like, can I sit in your seat? Like, I want to see the main event in the front row. But so to me, again, that's Hal. He's amazing, and he does that really well. I have so tried. I am a night owl. Now I have children, so I have to wake up at a certain time for them. But I have to do something completely different. And so to me, one of the biggest things that for millionaires, not all of them are miracle morning people, but they know themselves ridiculously well. So if you know the way that you work best and you level that up, that is a million times more important than just doing what someone else tells you to do. So to me, when you start talking about the specific things, I did a speech for Ryan Moran. He had a event a few years ago, and he goes, I want to know what it takes for millionaires to go from 1 million to 10 million. Like, what is that gap? And, right? Over and over. So I went and I asked a whole bunch of people. Over and over and over again, it came up saying to level up your strengths, which is exactly what we were just talking about. I'm like, that sounds really easy, but how do you actually do that? So to bring it back to what you were saying in terms of what are those habits, or what are the common themes that we have? One of them is having a continuous forward motion towards whatever your strengths are with a no matter what attitude. Does that make sense? So when you're looking at what we have all the time in the world, we all only have 24 hours in a day, right? How can we continuously move forward towards what our strengths are, which means delegating the stuff we suck at so we can do more of our strengths, like we were just talking about, is sort of number one. But then adding in, and this is sort of part two, because you can have a no matter what attitude if you're not going through your strengths, but they have this attitude of, I'm going to figure this out no matter what.
No matter what.
Yeah. It's the commitment to the end result, even if you don't know how to get there. Yeah. Right. So if you just know right now, I am not a miracle morning person, I'm not going to do that. But we don't have the end result of like, what am I then? Right. Having that no matter what, I'm going to figure out how I work best. And that commitment to figuring it out is one of the traits that comes up over and over and over again.
One particular person that I know that is a multimillionaire, he'll just say, I don't do early. You know, I stay up later. I do these things in the evening. I don't do early, so don't call me early, you know.
But that's what's so amazing about him. He knows himself extremely well. And to me, nobody can teach you that in a book, unfortunately, right? You're like, wait, but I want an owner's manual that tells me what I need. Unfortunately, we haven't made that quite yet. Hopefully, when robots and AI take over, we can know. But when we start really trying to figure out what it is, it's on you to figure that stuff out.
Yeah, and it is a challenge. People, oftentimes I think people just don't do it because it's hard. And you have to live a good bit of the time outside your comfort zone. And I think that in itself is the thing that separates the two groups of people. We don't always like it, but we just do it anyway. And we know it's like tough love. Jamie said I have to do this. Okay. But the other people, they don't do it. So I think that is definitely, I've seen, I have a lot of friends, and not all of them even know the word entrepreneur, you know, so they don't get it, and they don't understand it. But it is so important that you understand that this is the way it's supposed to be.
Well, that's so. Have you ever heard of Mel Robbins's work?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Right, the 5-second rule.
I love Mel Robbins.
Her. Yeah, she's and not on my show, but on with Chase Bank, I got a chance to interview her. And to me, she puts it in a small bite-sized chunk that people can get. Because unfortunately, it's become cliche to say get out of your comfort zone. Everyone's like, no, great. But we still don't do it because it's uncomfortable, right? So the way that she says it, I so love, because she's like, yeah, everybody has resistance. If you give yourself 5 seconds, of course you'll talk yourself out of it. So don't give yourself 5 seconds. That's all you have, right? So she has a book called The 5-Second Rule, and we can link to the TED Talk that she has that's literally like 10, 15 minutes that goes over this. But just having that discipline is huge. My kids are in an entrepreneur kids school right now, and it's so interesting to see them learn these things at 10 and 12 that like I teach my clients now. Right? I
know. Yeah. That's amazing. Your kids are learning that now. Your kids are 10 and 12 now? Oh,
yes, they're 10 and 12. I know. Right. So, but imagine. And so again, they're lucky, right? They didn't even have entrepreneur kids schools when I was younger. But they're lucky that they can learn more about themselves at a young age. But in general, if you don't know that much about yourself, start now. Even if it's small, incremental moments, the fact that you can say that you know that you're not a morning person is amazing, because maybe you didn't know that beforehand.
I'm so glad you brought up Mel Robbins, because I love the concept of her book, just counting down that 5 seconds, just don't give yourself to 7 or 8 or 9, just get up and do it. And it's so true. If you say, I don't want to meditate today, but I'll just meditate for 5 minutes. I'll just get up and do it for 5 minutes. Next thing you know, it's 30 minutes or whatever it is. But there is power in that. I call it Mels Rule. There's power in knowing that.
It's funny you bring up the meditation example. So I have ADD. I have a very overactive, visionary, creative brain. I was an art major and then a computer major. I've got an interesting brain, let's say that. So, and this is what my clients always say when they come back to me. They're like, I can't meditate. My brain's too crazy. And like, that's why you need to meditate,
That's
which
why you
I'm
need.
sure you've heard, right? So 10 years ago, well, 12 years ago now, when my son was born, I started meditating. I lasted 3 minutes and I'd fall asleep. I'd lay on the bed and be like, I'm meditating out, right? Because seriously, I meditate every single day. I have a whole meditation room now. Like, it has changed the way that I can slow down my brain and actually be aware of the thoughts that I'm thinking. And this is, again, the personal evolution. As we start to understand ourselves a little bit better, we can break it apart a little bit easier. And being able to settle your mind from the craziness that is entrepreneurship, because no offense, is a huge key piece to being more aware of what you want. So when you say it's hard, yes, it's hard, but it's also hard because you can't pull apart your own self. It's difficult I can't coach myself. It's very difficult to do that. Right. And so being able to meditate and slow your brain down, again, I couldn't ever for a ridiculously long period of time. 12 years later, I'm okay at it. Right. Like, I'm okay. But having that initial subset of just going, I'm just going to try and do this much. It might suck, and it probably will, right? And that's okay, as long as I just keep showing up. It's the reps that you're putting into the stuff that matters, even if it's not perfect, that will add up over. That's a long time. 12 years is a long time.
It's a long time. You know, it's I started about 20 years ago, when nobody knew about meditation. And the reason I started was I have the same brain, but mine like runs on a continuous loop 24 hours a day. I could never shut it off. And I didn't realize what I was trying to do, but I would try to visualize like blank walls and things, just like, stop, I need to go to sleep. And I like to say that, you know, meditation is a practice. You get better at it like other things. But it absolutely does change your mind. It lowers your stress level. And it's something that Jamie's a perfect example. If Jamie can do it with her ADD, anybody can do it. I mean, but it doesn't happen overnight. But I think all these tools are things that make you a better business person.
Well, that's the funny thing, is that we're online and everybody tells you about all the amazing tools, and there's so many now, and that's so amazing. I'm so grateful that we live in the world that we do nowadays. If we didn't have internet, there's no way I'd be interviewing 500 millionaires. But it can also get really overwhelming on what do I do and how do I start? And it doesn't matter what you start with. It really doesn't. It doesn't matter, just as long as you pick something that you feel called to at the moment, and you just start putting in the reps. Eventually it's going to evolve over time. And I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for how far we can come, right? When it's small incremental changes. My friend James Clear came out with a book called Atomic Habits.
Yes.
It's so good. And it's just these little incremental things that over time make a huge difference. So don't think you have to change everything, right? I'm an all or nothing thinker. That's the reason why I say this, right? I'm like, well, I'm either all in or I'm all out, right? My diet's either perfect good or who cares?
Who cares?
Right? This is yummy. Okay, go. So, but again, learning about yourself and understanding that, and this has been my evolution over time, instead of having to go the all or nothing route, like, let's just see how little I can get. Like, let's just see, right? I was a single mom for a long time of 2 kids, and like, I had all the excuses in the world. Everybody, if they looked at me, be like, well, of course, you don't have to do that. You're dealing with kids, and you're dealing with this, and you got a business, right? So I'm like, I did. I had all the excuses, and I used them for a very long period of time, right? But I've lost like 40, 50 pounds in the last 2-3 years because of small, tiny, incremental change. Again, without necessarily having to go, I have to be like this or I have to be like that. That's again, only comes with age, though, right?
Yeah, wisdom, hard-earned wisdom. Well, Jamie, I don't want to keep you. I could talk to you for probably about 6 months, but I wanted to. It's always fun talking to you, but I know that you have a number of programs for people at every level. So, what is that? We have a page. You have a page set up that if I've got this right, it's eventualmillionaire.com/Sharon.
Yes.
Oh, right. So Jamie's going to put, we'll have all of the resources we've talked about in the show today on one page. How cool is that? You don't have to go back and say, what was that thing? I forgot to write it down. So thank you for that. Totally stealing that idea.
You totally should. Let me know if you need SOPs. We'll send you our process if you need them.
Thank you. Do you have any final words of wisdom for folks before I let you go and get on with your life today? Anything you'd like to leave them with?
Yes. So I ask the same last question in all of these interviews, right? And my question that I ask them is, what's one action you can take this week to help move you forward towards your goal of $1 million? Because I'm an action oriented, just tell me what to do, right? And so we calculated what the most common answer was. So I love it when people ask me the last question, because I'm like, I got a perfect one. It's going to sound cliche. Don't write this off before you hear it, please. Thank you. Okay. So the tip is, do the thing that you already know you need to be doing, whether it be something small or something big, and commit to it. So you're most likely procrastinating on something that you already know would be really good for you to do, especially if I said that and something popped up like, oh yeah, right? Go do that thing now, whether it be today. If you're driving, you probably shouldn't do it right this second, but put it in your calendar and actually get outside of your comfort zone. Use that Mel Robbins 5-second rule if you have to, but do that thing that you know you're avoiding.
Okay, excellent advice. So thanks again, Jaime, for coming on the show. It's always fun. And what's the best way for folks to get in touch with you?
Well, if you want all those resources, go to eventualmillionaire.com/Sharon, but you can also sign up for my podcast. Just look up Eventual Millionaire in whatever podcasting app you think is best.
Awesome. Well, this has been a great show, but then I knew it would be. So folks, that's all for today. And I'll see you same time, same place next week. Bye for now. Bye, Jaime.
Thank you.